Hello and welcome to Reviews. As always, I'm Plume Noir, and actually, I do have Butters here. She's actually just curled up. She's all covered up and sleeping next to me. Well, she was sleeping until I got her attention with the camera light there. So, she's all ready for bed. This is flash forward number 3. Um, you may notice that it is also once again. Oh, here comes JR. JR's still a little young. It's hard to keep him under control. Um, this is flash forward number 3. You may notice this is the variant cover. Now, as you're aware, I am not a fan of variant covers. But this series, the variant covers, have been just knocking it out of the park. I mean, these things have just been fantastic to look at. They're not gimmicky or anything. They're just really cool bits of art here. The second issue was really good, and this one not quite as awesome as that one, but still pretty damn cool looking if you ask me. It would be better if it didn't have the Tempest dude's face up there, but just that picture of Wally West there is, kind of doing almost like a Spider-Man pose. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So anyway, about this issue. Um, Starts off really strong. Basically, people falling from the sky. Now, I'm going to be honest. I read this yesterday. Didn't get a chance to do the review yesterday. I actually thought at first this was a building, giving it some perspective, like we're on the ground looking up as they're falling, because they have that doom signal in the sky. You'll see it, over here as well. Um, it's actually not. If you look closely, it's actually the cruise ship. It makes more sense. You see the martini here. Um, yeah, because the Superman has taken this cruise ship up in the air and has dropped it onto the ground. So dropped it so that people will fall to the ground. This page here, you can tell they're falling, but it was a little bit confusing. Like I said, at a glance, I actually thought this was a building. You're looking up at people as they were falling from the sky. I thought that was actually a cooler idea, but it's not actually what's happening. Um, so as these people are plummeting down to the ground, Wally is basically waiting for them to get close enough to the buildings, jumping around, grabbing them, and saving them all. And what we find is that the cruise ship, falls and smashes a bunch of buildings. And everyone is talking, can you save us from them? And he's like, again with the them. I'm going to need a few more details before I make any promises. Well, the Superman that took that cruise ship up in the air is actually the vampire Superman from the Justice League of Vampires on Earth 43, I think. Sorry, now Butters got up. I woke her up. Now she's scratching to be let out. So if you hear a scratching noise, just ignore her. Um, so this is one thing I kind of wonder. Superman as a vampire, he's solar powered. How exactly does that work? I mean, okay, so now he's as strong as a vampire, but what is actually fueling him? So anyway, we get Wally now having to fight vampire versions of the Justice League. Now, I will say one thing about this ad, ooh, shiny. Um, at least they remembered in the Silver Age that Barbara Gordon was a congresswoman. You know, even congresswomen like to get down once in a while, Dick. Uh, Phrasing. So Superman is up in the air, and Wally goes up and just starts pummeling him. And you're thinking, okay, the Flash vs. Superman, a vampire evil Superman. This won't end well. And surprisingly, it does. Because as Wally is thinking, how am I keeping track of the number of punches? Is this what Tempest meant when he said that I'm unmoored? I can hold two separate thoughts at once? I've never been this fast. Never thought this fast. With every instant, I could feel myself changing. So he knocks Superman into a whole bunch of wood and splinters it up and basically stakes the heck out of him. So, okay, Superman's down. Well, who's next up in the Justice League of Vampires? Well, someone is monitoring Wally. Oh, he's good, but he didn't kill that monster, which makes him an idiot. Well, it's Barry Allen Flash. He even has little bat wings on his ears. Um, I was going to mention this like near the end of the video, but maybe I'll start bringing it up now. If you notice that throughout this series, Wally's like kind of blue energy coming off of him has had this star-like effect. From not always, but from time to time. And once you see him up against Barry Allen, who's tapped into the Speed Force, it's really noticeable. So you're thinking, okay, Vampire Barry versus Wally. The only thing about this is as Wally is fighting him, he starts to kind of hallucinate. He sees Barry, as Arsenal, sees him as Narc, which everyone's like, okay, why Narc? You know, of all the people he supposedly killed in Heroes in Crisis, why Narc? You know, Arsenal, understandable. But you think someone maybe a little bit, even Blue Jay, he worked with Blue Jay on the Justice League. You think that maybe him before Narc? So anyway, he fights Barry, and eventually, I gotta stop here at some point here. Um, Eventually, he ties him up enough so that Barry can get just impaled with arrows. Now, who do we know that uses arrows? Why, of course, it's Arsenal. You know, Arsenal has him dead to rights. Well, it turns out that Arsenal is like the Buffy the Vampire Slayer of this world. And he's the one that's trying to hunt down all the vampires. Which is pretty awesome because now they have to team up and go to Gotham to go after Batman. And so we get a lot of conversation here because this was one of Wally's best friends. He still has the guilt about it. He explains he's from another Earth. And Arsenal says, he only hunts vampires. So it's obvious Wally's not a vampire. So that situation's diffused pretty quickly. Oh, here's the last chapter of that Svengoolie thing. I'm not going to go too much farther in this. Wally vibrates Arsenal into the Batcave, again, phrasing, and sees all the little black orbs of the antimatter stuff, the dark multiverse antimatter stuff, is all just conglomerated into the Batcave, because Batman has been studying it. So when he goes to pull his little MacGuffin out that's going to zap all the dark multiverse energy, Batman batarangs it. And I'm actually going to stop there. If you're looking for an issue that explains more of what Wally's mission is, what Tempest is doing with him, you're not going to get it in this issue. However, what you will get is Wally being awesome. Wally being Wally. And it's so interesting to me because when they did the rebirth of Barry Allen, when Jeff Johns did that limited series with Ethan, and it brought well, it didn't bring Barry back to life, but brought him back up to prominence. And Wally switched to that kind of red costume with the cowl. They said DC said they were going to do a comic called Speed Force that would focus. Oh, Butters is back. On Wally and the other Speed characters. Well, obviously that never happened. And Wally only appeared a couple times before Flashpoint. And then once the New 52 happened, we all know that Wally pretty much got replaced. And then in DC Rebirth, Wally West came back. So now there's the two Wally Wests. The what's a nice way to say it? The African American one, the one that was more inspired by the TV show, I guess, or I guess technically it was before the TV show that it took from. But anyway, and then of course the original Wally West. And then they didn't quite really know what to do with him. So of course Heroes in Crisis happened. The reason why I'm bringing all this up is because this book is what should have happened after Flash Rebirth. I mean, maybe not this exact storyline, but the loving way they're treating Wally. Scott Lobdell, if he's not a Wally West fan, you sure as heck can't tell, and it really comes through in here. And another thing I've noticed that's really important: In the first issue, yeah, they did bring up what happened in Heroes in Crisis, the guilt he's feeling, um, and a little bit more in the second issue. This one is dialing it back a little bit. We're starting to see Wally be Wally again. And yes, he did have a little bit of the whole, his mind playing tricks on him where he saw Barry as Arsenal and as Narc. Um, and then he's face to face with Arsenal. Again, another Arsenal, an Arsenal from another Earth, but he sees Roy Harper and tells him a little bit about what Roy's done on his Earth, our Earth, or whatever you want to call it. I don't think it's Earth 1 anymore. But whatever they call it, the main Earth. Um, and of course, he doesn't want to say exactly what happened to him, but we're seeing less of the guilt. And this whole thing about Tempest seems like he's trying to um, bring Wally back as the great hero he is. I'm not quite sure where this series is going yet, how they're going to do it. So if you're looking for this issue to kind of, further that plot, you're going to be a little disappointed. Um, One thing that is kind of interesting to point out, and it's good that we have the Flash here. Um, Wally talks about how Tempest has told him he's unmoored, um, and how the whole thing with the New 52 kind of threw him, out of whack. He wasn't assimilated into the new Earth the way other people were. Bringing this up because it's Wally's energy is blue as opposed to Barry's yellow lightning. But with the energy that comes off of him, you do get that star effect. You can kind of see it through here. In this panel, sometimes it even looks a little bit like, I don't know, techno, like New Gods type thing around there. Oh, Butters is under the blanket. What are you doing under there? Um, she likes to crawl under blankets too, so what I think they're doing with Wally is he says he's never been this fast. I have a feeling they're going to say he's no longer tapping into the Speed Force, that he's actually tapping into the multiverse. And that's what he's going to end up being. He's going to end up being the multiverse champion as opposed to like a champion of the Speed Force. And that's actually a really good role if they do that. Where he's not tapping into the same force as, Barry, not the same speed force. He's tapping into something more primal. It's hard to explain when you're talking about, comic book concepts like this. You know, um, Whether it be from the bleed or from the multiverse itself, if he's actually pulling his speed, and that's why he's faster than he's ever been. And remember, Wally is the guy who well, you don't want to say discovered the Speed Force, but he was doing all the Speed Force stuff, before Barry even. Well, Barry was dead at the time, and he could do stuff that Barry couldn't even do. So it's nice to see that he is actually carving his own path, and as Wally is being returned as a hero, his redemption, it's finding a new role for him. So he's not just, now that Barry's back, he's not just in his shadow anymore. He's not just the Kid Flash. He's not just, he's still the Flash, and he is a Flash that a lot of us love, and so yeah, I like that. That's just my theory, but I have a feeling they're going with a multiversal Flash. He's not pulling from the Speed Force. He's not pulling. He's actually pulling from the fabric of reality, or what holds all the realities together. Really looking forward to that. One last thing I want to mention: the art. Brett Booth is killing it with the art. It was just the only problem, like I said, was this first page. The perspective, you could tell people are falling, but it was hard to tell this was a cruise ship at first. But other than that, I mean, the art on this has been just fantastic. This book reminds me of a 90s comic. Of course, it's Scott Lobdell writing it, but I mean that in the good way. And, if you read comics in the 90s, or if you've gone back and reread them, you know what I mean. It's not just trying to be extreme and radical. The art is great. The coloring is fantastic. when you have something like this, where you have all the energy effects, even Wally's two-tone suit, all of it looks good. Um, but yeah, as far as advancing the story, yeah, not it doesn't do that so much. But seeing Wally as a character, what more he can do, and actually facing Arsenal, even if it's another Earth's Arsenal, it's fantastic. I really love this book. I'm going 1 o'clock on it. 1 o'clock. Almost went 12. Butters, calm down. What are you doing? Oh, she's mad. She's mad. Oh, she's biting me. She's biting me. Yeah, look at her. She's biting me. Yeah, I almost went 12 o'clock on this. I would have gone 12 o'clock if they had, moved the main story along a little bit. Because this is, what, a 6-issue miniseries, and we're now halfway through it. So we don't really know what Tempest is up to, other than he's trying to clean up the dark multiverse energy and how that's all tying in with everything else going on, because DC has these things going on right now with the infected and that's the Batman Who Laughs. I'm not following that. They have the dark multiverse thing going on. Um, so I don't think this is really going to affect much of that. It's more like uh, um, a side story to that, but it's still enjoyable. So yeah, 1 o'clock, going 1 o'clock on this, almost 12 o'clock, only because we're halfway through a limited series. So it's going to have to kind of speed it up here, no pun intended, in the rest of the remaining issues to see where they're going with this. But as far as a look at Wally West and him being awesome, it's a great book for that. I definitely recommend picking this up. So as always, thanks for watching. I'm going to cut it short here because Butters is really mad. She is mad. So, oh, I just got his stats. So, all right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.